going to get started now. My name is Bruce Bach. I'm the Senior Competition Director here with SOPA. And joining me tonight is Jennifer Tresp, who is the Training and Unified Sports Director for SOPA. And we also have Mary Ellen Brown, who is our Volleyball Sports Director. So I want to thank them for joining me and thank all of you for joining us tonight to talk about joining the sports call for volleyball. Sorry, I couldn't move to the next slide. So just to give you an overview of what the agenda is going to look like this evening, we're going to ask if you have any questions along the way, if you can drop them in the chat along the way so we can get through our presentation in a timely fashion. We'll try to answer the questions within the chat as we go along, or if not, we will go back to the questions in the chat at the end of this presentation. So we should have about 15 minutes for question and answer at the end of this presentation, as long as I keep my part a little quicker tonight than I did last night. We ran out of time, so I'll try to get through my section as quickly as possible. Jen will go over some of the housekeeping things, just to review with the coaches, some of the visas information and things like that. Mary Ellen will go over some of the sports updates as well as some of the sports-specific guidelines that we put together for volleyball for this year. And I'll give you a brief overview of the return to activities plan that was put out last week. And we also some of the information in case you missed the coaches meetings last week. I'll go over some of that information, but very high level, very quickly, because if you want to get more information on the return to activities plan, you can listen to our webinar from last Thursday that was specifically for coaches. And as we move on, I'll show you where that can be located as well. Now I'll talk to you a little bit about virtual sectionals and Fall Fest, what those competitions will look like at the end of the year. And then again, Mary Ellen will talk to you about your practices and skills and things like that coming up. So with that being said, Jennifer, would you mind taking over for us?
Yeah, not a problem.
All right, thank you.
So just a couple coaching topics that we'll need to go over. As you can see, we are still going to be maintaining our 1-to-4 ratio. Remember, that's coach to athlete, not athlete to coach ratio. That must be maintained at all times, whether you are training on a bus to go to an event, or you are at an event, and the coaches in the 1-to-4 ratio must be that Class A volunteer. Okay. Certified coaches for this fall, we will be a little flexible with it this season. We, with everything being virtual, we know that some of our coaches who wanted to get certified have not been certified yet, but again, we will be holding those virtual coaches skills certifications. They are in August. I have 3 on the 15th and 3 on the 22nd. Okay, so please, if you have coaches who need to register for a volleyball certification, please make sure that they go onto their Visas portal and register and then attend that training. So once one in-person competition resumes, remember we do have the new coaches ratios that we need to be following, the coaches information. So if you are a team sport and you have individual skills, you must have at least 1 certified coach for every team, and you must have at least 1 certified coach for your individual skills. So the individual skills team has to have a coach also. For individual sports, there must be at least 1 certified coach for every 25 athletes. Again, that's at training as well as competition. Next slide, please, Bruce. The athlete's medical. So we understand that with COVID, this has created a lot of issues for athletes and their families to try to update their medicals. I know my doctor's appointments were all pushed off another 6 months, so I'm sure that your athletes had the same situations. So what we're going to say that is we're going to give them a 6-month extension of a current athlete, a 3-year application for participation. So athletes' medicals expiring August 1st and from there on must have a new form to participate. So I'm going to read this directly from the notes because I want to make sure that you understand this. So we're offering a 6-month extension if a medical expires from March 20th, 2020. I'm sorry, how about March 2020 to July 2020 with the following provisions. The athlete hasn't had any major changes to their health status since their last medical was completed. The athlete has not been infected with COVID-19. The athlete does not express any of the following symptoms at rest or during exercise: difficulty breathing, chest pains, shortness of breath, loss of consciousness, lightheadedness, dizziness, visual changes, that's vision changes, headache, cough, skipped heartbeats, irregular heartbeats, and any other unpleasant physical symptoms. Any athlete with a medical that expires August 1st or later must provide a new medical. All athletes have been communicated this information through VISUS. So the family members, parents, guardians, they should know about it, but we wanted to make sure that you were up to date on that information. Go ahead, Bruce, slide on through. Job responsibilities and level of responsibilities. The list for the head coaches and the assistant coach are very short here, as you can see on this slide. Just for you to know, we have developed a brand new head coaches and a brand new assistant coaches job responsibility. They can be found on the SOPA website under the resource tab under training. They're also in the monthly update, they're on the website under the monthly update also. So please, when you have a chance, go on and take a look at those job descriptions. They talk about the head coach's responsibility before training, during training, after training, competition, and after competition, as well with the same things for the assistant coaches. If you do not have your computer muted, please take a moment and do that for us. Okay. All right. So again, we split up the tasks in the head coaches and the assistant coaches to make sure that the program is successful and nobody is too overwhelmed. The next item is the VISUS portal, training schools, webinars, and more. Most of you may know that this tab exists on your VISUS portal, on the personal portal. It does exist. Right now, you can go on and you can sign up for skills training. You can do the tell us what your training, tell us what your interests are that you need a certification for. Okay. And the sports training hours can be completed on this portal also. And if you have a coach who would like to go through Special Olympics PA Track 2 experience, that document is on the VISUS portal also. Please note that if you have a coach training school, they must sign up on the portal. Okay, so they need to make sure that they are signing up on the portal to get the credit to go to the training school, as well as be able to use the new sports training application hours. If you want to go to the next slide. Okay, there we go. There's the next slide. From now on, we're working on getting rid of the paper version of the sports training application. So when you go onto your VISUS portal, when you're under the training schools, webinars, and more, you're going to see a new area that says sports training application coaching hours. So the coaches may now go in and they are able to log their hours through their VISUS portal. So when you click on this box in the blue, you will get this box at the bottom here that's squared in red. It's going to ask you what sport you would like to submit hours for. The only sports it will show is for training schools that you attended. So if you try to put in hours for Alpine, but you didn't attend a training school, it will not show you Alpine. Okay, so please, that's the reason they have to register for the training schools through the Visas portal. And then you can complete the hours that you used for the training, the location, and the number of athletes that attended the training. So you have two options. You can go in after every practice and you can register hours that you just used, or you can wait till the end of your 10 hours and go in and submit the hours. Just remember, you can only submit up to 3 hours at one time, because 3 hours is the maximum numbers of hours you can get at any time. So for example, if you use hours from a sectional, a state games, or an invitational, you may use 3 hours. Otherwise, it's the number of hours that you spent at the training. Okay, so every time you put one in, you might say, I was July 21st, I had 25 athletes, and we were there for 1.5 hours. You'll submit, which is the green little square at the bottom. And after you do that, it will come back up and clean box, and you can submit the next hours. You can go in and out as many times as you need to submit those hours. When you think you have all your hours in, then you can go, next slide, Bruce. You can go to the My Information page. On My Information page, you will see on a drop down that says Sports Training Application Submitted Hours. You can review your hours, you can edit them, you can scratch them, you can add them all from here. Once you have submitted those hours, I receive a notification that they are there, and in which I can go in, I can check your hours, and then we can update your record to show that you are now certified in that sport. Okay, so this is one way for you to take care of entering your own information, and once that is in, we will not have to have an extra piece of paper floating out around Never Never Land. Okay. Before I move on, there was a question in the box asking how the athletes were notified about their medicals. From what I understand, they were notified by email if their medical had expired during that period of time. If there was an email in their athlete record, they were notified that they had a 6-month extension to get a new medical. Okay. All right, so we are back here on the Visas portal again. As you can see, the blue area, if you need to take one of the Class A trainings, the drop-down box for Class A required trainings would happen to be on your portal. It shows you this area you can take Fit 5, General Orientation, Concussion Training, and Protected Behaviors. The newest item is your welcome page. If you scroll down to the bottom of your welcome page, you'll see this red box, and this will tell you what trainings that need to be updated. So remember, protective behaviors and concussion training are good for 3 years. General orientation at this time is a lifetime training. Okay, but your red box will show you what needs to be updated, and then if you click on them, they will take you directly to the course that needs to be updated. Bruce, please switch slides. All right, if you're looking for continuing education, go to our website. Again, you'll see that there is a volunteer resources. Underneath it, click on the Volunteer Center. Down here in the gray boxes, you will see continuing ed. Remember that you must do continuing ed once every 3 years. Right now is a perfect time to be taking some continuing ed. We have a lot of great courses listed. So if you go in, you can check those out. We have an autism training called the Coach's Playbook. We have a unified sports training. We have Principles of Coaching that will be coming out very shortly, a virtual Zoom meeting for that. So there's a lot of continuing education, but that is where you will find all the continuing educations. If you have any questions about continuing education or the courses that you can take, please feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call, and I will gladly help you get through your continuing education. Next slide. Improving communications. One of the things we did was we created a closed Facebook group for our coaches. And I have to tell you, this has really been a great addition to our communications. You can go in, you can sign in. When you sign in for it, you're asked a couple of questions, and then we'll let you in the group. It's optional. You do not have to do this, but if you're looking to be on top of everything that's coming out, right here's the place to find it. You get information on practicing tips. Coaches have asked questions. People have shared answers. It's a great resource for networking and making sure that everything you need to know, you can get an answer to. Next slide. Our Lunch and Learn series is back. You'll see they are done on the first, usually they are the first or the second Wednesday of the month. We do have some pushed back a little bit this season due to the coronavirus and having to turn everything virtual. And we want to make sure that they are good resources for you, up to date on information. Some of them also are included in continuing education. So you'll see August 26th, we have virtual fitness. That's what's taking place in phase A. September 9th, uniform logos and requirements, and October 14th is unified fitness. So you can sign up. If you are unable to be on a Zoom webinar at noon, we actually record them. If you go to our SOPA page, which you'll see right up here, the SpecialOlympics.org Lunch and Learn webinar series, if you go to that page, you can listen to all of the recordings and get the updated information. Okay. Next page, the coach's training and progression plan. This is still being worked on. We have a new class of coaches who will be inducted in the end of the year. We are now on to some coaches up to the silver level. Once you are a certified coach, you can work on your bronze level. The bronze level includes taking the course Coaching Special Olympics Athletes. It's offered virtually as well as offered online. If you take the online course, there is a fee to it. We work on personal best performance goals through the Fit 5 activation. For silver, the athletes are now training for a minimum of 10 weeks in the sport. You have Principles of Coaching course, Coaching Unified Sports, and again, both of those courses will be offered virtually through the fall and winter of this year. And then finally, when you're working on your gold, you have advanced sports skills courses, or what we may call tactics. You're training at least twice a week for a minimum, again, of 10 weeks, and you're working on a year-round plan for training and wellness for the athletes. As you accomplish each level, you receive a credential with your photo on it stating you are a bronze, silver, or gold level coach. And also there is a lanyard that goes with them stating what level of a coach you are. And once you get to gold, we also include a lapel pin that you can wear in your formal attire, or when you are going to some place and you want people to know that how proud of you we are that you are a gold level coach. Okay, next slide. Fit 5, let's get started on it. This is a great program. And again, you saw when you signed on to Visas and you went under your courses, there was a listing for Fit 5. That was with the courses Protective Behaviors, General Orientation, and Concussion Training. You can watch a video there and sign up for it. Once you do that, you'll receive the materials. There's a coach's book, there's an athlete's book, there's some fitness cards. You will receive that information. And all you need to do is implement each of the sections. Maybe it takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes before practice, during it, or after, whichever one you can fit it in. And the material is already set up for you. All you have to do is show the athletes the photo and read the card behind it and talk about it. So it's easy to do, and it's educational for the athletes. Next slide. USA and World Games. We actually have some new updated information for you. In 2021, 2022 will be the World Games. Believe it or not, we're going to Kazan, Russia. These were the games that were canceled this year, and they are now going to be in Russia on January 22nd through the 28th of 2022. Okay. So the athletes who were chosen to attend World Winter Games, and obviously did not because Sweden had canceled the games, will now be able to go to those games, but instead of Sweden, we'll be heading to Russia. The 2022 USA Games, Orlando, Florida. They're going to be in Disney World. I'm very excited about that. We had them as the qualifier was actually this fall for those games. That has been moved, and the qualifier will now be Fall Festival 2021. Okay. And again, there'll be a pre-selection questionnaire that will be distributed this fall, so it could be completed, and athletes next fall can qualify who are interested. In 2023, World Games will be in June 16th to the 25th, Berlin, Germany. So we're going to go from Russia to Florida to Germany. All right, next slide, please. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen has some information for you.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
There we go.
There you are.
Okay. I'm the volleyball sport director. And basically, if you have any specific questions, you can direct them to me.
Ooh.
And the website that you can do that, or by whatever in this means, raising your hand or chatting, we can answer those questions. Next slide, please, Bruce.
Looks like I spelled your name wrong there.
You left off the Y. It's okay.
Or Ellen, sorry.
When it says that there are rule updates, there's really no new rule updates, but there is a clarification on 2 that we implemented last year. So those of you who did attend sectionals and also state games had the opportunity to experience those 2 revisions. One dealt with prelims, where you had to play the top 6 players. And I believe the number of minutes are incorrect there, because typically the time limit is 8 minutes for each of the preliminaries, but the top 6 players were to play for the first 6 minutes. And in the last number of minutes to substitute the remaining players that you had on your bench. And the uniform, this is a clarification. Remember, there was discussion last year with respect to whether or not you could wear arm sleeves or wristbands. And the clarification is soft fabric material arm sleeves and wristbands are permitted. And sleeves and wristbands should be one of the colors of the uniform. Now that's something that you'll have to make sure that you're prepared to have if you have athletes that are wearing the wristbands, but in addition, if they are also wearing the arm sleeves. Next slide, please.
Okay, thanks, Mary Ellen. And you'll be up in a couple minutes, so I'll make sure to make this section pretty quick, just as an overview. But before I get started here, I do have a poll that we're going to ask you all to take. It's something new that we're trying out this year, so let's hope you can. Oh, Jen, you might have to do it.
Okay. Well, there's the poll. All right.
Huh.
So launch poll.
You're going to have to read it. It doesn't pop up on my screen for some reason.
Okay.
So you're up, and I can't share it.
Do you see the poll?
Nope.
I did.
You guys
I
can all
did.
see it. I can't because me and you are on the same. We're on the same
Oh, gotcha.
Zoom line.
All right.
We
So
did.
the poll is up. Can you see it all now? Can you all see it now?
Yep.
It
The question-
disappeared.
It disappeared?
Once you answer the poll, it will disappear.
Yep, once you answer, the poll will disappear. The question on the poll is, do you plan to return to in-person activities this fall season? Yes, no, or are you undecided? Okay. We should have a couple more responses coming in. All right. The
How do we
result-
do?
Here is the results. We had 17% or 4 people said yes, 75% or 18 people said no, and we have 8% or 2 people who said that they are undecided.
All right. Thank you. All right. We'll get. Let me get going here. Okay, so I'll just give you a brief overview of this. This is stuff that we talked about last Thursday on the coaches call. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Just if you can, just as a reiteration from the other day, as you can see from this chart, we are directly in line with Special Olympics of Pennsylvania, as well as the state of Pennsylvania's red, yellow, and green phase. As you are aware that our athletes cannot return to play in person unless your county is green. Right now, all the counties in Pennsylvania are green. So I'm going from left to right. You can see SOPA's phase A is the phase that we're in right now with the virtual stay at home, in line with SOI phase 0, which is stay at home. And then Pennsylvania yellow and red is the kind of stay at home, no in-person activities. And then going from left to right, SOPA phase 10 is no more than 10 participants at a training site. SOPA phase C is no more than 25 at a practice site. SOPA phase D is no more than 50, and phase E is no more than 150 at a training site. When we say no more than 10 participants, that means everyone that is at that training site. So participants include coaches, athletes, any one-on-ones, or anyone else that may be at your practice site. So they need to be counted within those numbers. So that's why we want to enforce that there's no spectators on the sidelines or anything like that, because they would need to be counted within those numbers as well. If you notice, phase D and phase E are grayed out. So we're not going to be allowed any programs to participate in phase D or phase E during this fall. So if you are returning to in-person training, you would start out in phase B with the no more than 10 participants at a training site. And after 3 weeks, if you're comfortable and you want to move on to phase C, you'll just fill out another training site application. That training site application is supposed to be completed by your COVID-19 coordinator. I just want to bring this up real quick so I can show you our website that we have. I'll show you our website that we have related to virtual return to activities. Here's our website. When you pull it up, if you look down here, COVID-19 protocols, return to activities. When you click on there, it'll bring you to the COVID-19 return to activities. If you look on here under coaches, we have resources for coaches. Again, if you weren't on last Thursday's COVID webinar, you can click on here and get the webinar. There's other videos that we showed on there, how to prepare your venue, how to travel to activity and the on-site screening process, and some examples of coaching adjustments. Under the important documents within the coaches, you'll see all these skills guides that we created for you that you can look under there. Mary Ellen, well, I'll show you the individual skill guides in a minute, but Mary Ellen will discuss some other things that are in there. Also, return to activities timeline, fact sheets, BMI, honor code is all included within that. So more information is on there. Everything for return to activities or any updates to the activity plan will be included on this website. So if you ever have any questions, please visit this website. There's also going to be an FAQ section on here with all the questions that we've accumulated over the past 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, will be included on there too. So a lot of your questions could be answered there. So that is the website. Just real quick, some important highlights. Returning to in-person activity, again, is truly optional. You don't need to return to activity if you don't want to or you're not comfortable with. There is no penalty for not returning into play. Your athletes are not going to be penalized if they don't return to play. So again, returning to play in person is truly optional. Again, the attendance limitations includes all the participants. The at-home virtual training and competition will always be an option. We'll discuss that in a little bit. Anyone that does return to play will have to complete the COVID-19 participant code of conduct as well as the risk assessment form. That should be completed by your COVID-19 individual. Here's some of the coaching responsibilities just for you to look at. During the first phases, the A, B, and C, unfortunately, high-risk athletes and volunteers are going to have to stay at home. They're not permitted for in-person training at this time. One thing that's really important is to ensure that your athletes bring water to practice, because we're not going to be able to, coaches won't be able to bring their own water coolers or jugs of water or use water fountains at this time. So please encourage them to bring their own water. Again, during these first 2 phases, equipment is not to be shared. If for some reason it is shared or a volleyball is touched by a different athlete, we want to make sure that we disinfect that volleyball. Each of your training sites will be receiving disinfectant wipes. They'll be receiving disinfectant cleaner, as well as hand sanitizer and gloves and thermometers, temporal thermometers.
And masks.
And a couple masks. So, and since Jen brought this up, here's an athlete practice checklist that we created for the athletes. We went over this last Friday on their webinar, so they should be familiar with this. It's also located on that website that I just showed you as a PDF that the athletes can print out at home. We are requesting and hoping that most athletes will bring their own mask from home. Again, the site will have some extras in case one of those would break, but for the most part, they should be bringing their own face mask. Again, with the water bottle, sports equipment, and towels. Virtual competitions upcoming for this fall. All the competitions for sectionals and Fall Fest will be virtual. This year, we're going to combine, well, all 3 sectionals will occur on the same day, which will be October 3rd. We may potentially use October 4th for some other additional activities, potentially awards and things like that. So all 3 of the sectional committees, East, Central, and West, have combined to work on just an incredible experience for your athletes. They will still be divisioned and competing within the East, and then within the Central, then within the West. So that will remain the same, that you're competing just among your region. Well, within your part of the state, either East, Central, or West. The entry information is due on September 10th. I'll get to that in a minute. The final results will be September 28th, which is the Monday prior to October 3rd. Fall Fest again will be virtual. It will occur Friday to Sunday, November 6th to the 8th. It will remain the same 3-day time frame. The entry information will be due on October 15th, which is the Monday 3 weeks prior to November 6th. And then the final results will be due on Monday, November 2nd. And I'll talk about that right now. So what will happen is if you are in-person training, the coaches will collect and submit their preliminary scores 3 weeks prior to the competition. That was the date that I mentioned on the Monday prior to the event. The scores, the preliminary scores, will be due 3 weeks prior. We will enter them into the GMS system and we'll division them by age, ability, and gender to set up the divisions. We develop an honor code, which I'll share with you in a minute. The Monday prior to the competition, the coach will submit their final competition scores. So what that is, you're at their practice, you'll run through the events, you'll collect their scores, you'll submit them 3 weeks prior. And then again, or the Monday of the event. You'll collect the scores at practice again, and you will submit those scores to us. We'll enter them in the GMS according to their divisions and everything, and that's how we will be awarding our athletes. Here's the honor code. It was mainly just to make sure that we keep things fair and equitable across all guidelines. Just to give you an example, let's use LDR as an example. We want to make sure the athletes are competing like on the same course or the same height of net as they've used for training. So for LDR, if they're running uphill, if their course is an uphill 3-mile run, we want to make sure that they're again running that same course for their final results. You can see that if you're running uphill for your first scores and your time is 12 minutes in the mile run, and then for your final score you run downhill, of course your score is going to be higher, so that would not be an equitable score. So we want to make sure that we keep things consistent. So we want to make sure the athletes use the same course, the field, court, same equipment that they submitted for their first round of scores. I see some questions piling up. I'm trying to leave plenty of time for questions, so we will answer those.
Bruce, I'm answering them for you. So
Okay, good. All right, cool. So keep on asking, keep going.
Thanks.
Awards, a little bit different than we did for summer games. We're actually going to be competing and actually have events that your athletes will be competing in. We will be awarding them with official, state medals. One thing that is different for volleyball, we have 3 skills in level 1, 3 skills in level 2. So each of those skills within level 1 will each be awarded medals. So if an athlete competes in all 3 level 1 skills, they can receive 3 medals. That's a little different than we've done in the past where they compete in all 3. You add a total of their scores up in their division that way. Again, this is different. Each individual score, each individual skill will now be awarded. So the athletes have the opportunity to get 3 awards. GOCs are working hard to see what the award ceremony will look like. So it's a pretty exciting time for our athletes. I'll show you this real quick before I turn it over to Mary Ellen to get to the good stuff. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, on our website where you saw the volleyball sports guidance, here is the volleyball sport guidelines and return to activities that we created for everyone. And I'll just talk to this very, very quickly. Within here, it has coaching responsibilities, the requirements of the phases. Mary Ellen will go over a practice plan example, some of the equipment, training drills, compiled some level 1, level 2 skills that you can do at practice. One thing that I really wanted to show you in here is at the very end is where we have this score compile sheet that'll help you at practice. So if you're coaching level 1 athletes and you're getting ready to submit your scores, you essentially just put all their names here and you record them, how they did on the overhead pass, underhand serving, forearm pass, for the number of attempts out of 10, and you get a total score there. And you just do that for each of the activities and then for each of your athletes. So this level 1, you collect the scores essentially 3 weeks before fall sectional. You turn that into your sport and comp person, and they'll submit the scores to us. Similarly, here is the level 2 virtual competition score sheet. Again, the athlete's name, the event that they're competing in, and then their attempts. You just write their score in there. All right, so very important is this score sheet that can help you at practice. Again, this can be found on our website under the sports. It'll probably be found in 2 different spots. Probably one under the sports offered link with the coach with the sports where the sports are listed, sports offered link, as well as on the COVID-19 return to activities link that I just showed you. All right, Mary Ellen, you're up. Take it away.
Okay, one thing I would like to mention is that particular booklet that you just saw is brand new. You do not have that anywhere else. So you're going to have to make sure that perhaps you want to print a copy of that off, because that reflects the virtual component. And of course, I also want to make sure that you are aware, and correct me if I'm misstating, Bruce and
Yep.
Jennifer, that chart is for in-person trainings.
Correct.
There
Correct.
will be an opportunity for those who are remaining at home to also be competing, but they will have modified skills in which they are to submit scores. That is not prepared at this time, but will be rolling out.
Correct. I'll talk about that
Mary
after this.
Ellen, somebody has unmuted themselves. We can hear something going on in the background. So please, if you've unmuted yourself, please remute yourself. Thank you.
Well, it worked.
Okay, for practice plans, this is oftentimes an overlooked step. And one of the most important things is, if you saw the chart that Jennifer had mentioned with regard to the responsibilities for the head coach, and then of course assistant coaches, it's really important that that head coach plan out a practice and make sure that they're sharing it with each of their assistants. Now, in this face-to-face, there's going to be one coach for 4 athletes, and then another coach for another 4 athletes, because remember, the magic number is 10. So there's 8 athletes and 2 coaches. So you have to keep your practice organized. You have to set specific times and try to stick to them, fighting the law of diminishing returns. We really have to make sure that we stick by this. It allows you to be prepared for the next drill. You know what's coming, and your assistant coaches and volunteers can set up that next drill. Or when you see the chart that will be coming up momentarily, you can flip-flop. It's kind of like a rotating system. The practice plan also maintains a consistent structure to your practices, and building one with a consistent schedule allows for a good flow of what is going to happen at your practice, and that the athletes are prepared and you've previewed things so that they know what they're going to be able to see happening every practice session that you come to. Next slide, please. Now, this is the chart that I was talking about. B and C levels. When you're in B, of course, we're at 10, and a C is at 25. So if you take a look, the left-hand column gives you the minutes of the approximate time for each of the things that are listed. Coach A will cover one group, and Coach B will cover another group. So you have your warm-ups, and then you have skill drills, as you can see them, while Coach B is doing ladder agility drills, core strength drills, or cardio conditioning drills. Then each of the groups will flip-flop. Now remember, everybody needs their own equipment, and if anybody else touches that individual's athlete ball, it was already mentioned, you have to take time to make sure it's sanitized. So when you flip-flop, then group 2 would be doing the skill drills, 1, 2, and 3 with Coach A, and Coach B then could continue on with doing the ladder agility, the core strength, and the cardio conditioning drills, and then you have your cool down. Then, of course, sanitizing the equipment and the wrap-up. So it's important that you keep good records of the scores that are occurring, because you will have a final score that has to be completed, and it's important, as Bruce stressed, that they are being done under the same conditions each of those times. So when you look at level 1 skills, and these you have seen when you were becoming a certified coach, the overhead passing is there. It is slightly modified because what you have is the athlete tossing the ball themselves and then setting it to the target area. So if the ball lands in the target area, after you take a look at the scoring criteria, you would be able to follow through with assigning a score for that particular skill. The underhand serve is in level 1. The overhead overhand serve is in level 2. Now, there is a difference there. Several of you might question this. In individual skills, which you have seen for those athletes competing there, they have 3 specific zones in which their ball can land. We are using the team, which is what you see there for the underhand serve, the team diagram. And there are a variety of points assigned to each of those sections. The difference in this one is that you see the trapezoid there. When you did individual skills for your certification, you saw that there were only 3 zones, and I introduced you to the opportunity for the team component with this diagram. Then you have the forearm pass. Again, what you have to realize is that the athlete is doing the tossing. The coach is not tossing the ball. No one else can touch the equipment but the athlete themselves. And you see the points assigned there as well. This is all in that handbook that Bruce showed us at the start of this particular component. For level 2, bump set. Again, the athlete is doing this independently, meaning no one else is tossing a ball to get it started. They are doing it on their own. The overhead serving, same graphic and same layout as you saw with skill 1 with the point values. And then over the net set, you can see where the athlete is, and they again are tossing that ball, and wherever that ball lands in that particular zone are the points that will be assigned. Next slide, Bruce, please.
Oh, I'm up. So as we've noticed, there's a lot of athletes and a lot of coaches that cannot return to play because of the strict guidelines of the high-risk individuals, and we're seeing a lot of athletes and coaches that are not ready to go back to in-person training. So what we're working on now is virtual offerings. We look to roll those out in mid-August. So don't fret, even though this presentation and these guidelines were kind of more set for the return to activities in person. We're working very hard behind the scenes to roll out the virtual offerings very quickly and very shortly. So we're taking 2 different approaches. One would be the at-home virtual sports-specific trainings and competitions, like Mary Ellen said. We are looking to, I'll just give you an example, like the bump set could probably be done at home virtually with an athlete. You could train an athlete virtually from Zoom or talking to them on the phone. So that would probably be one of the skills that we'd be able to do virtually. Overhead serving may be a little bit more challenging, but we may be able to come up with some alternative to overhead setting. Overhead net set, we may be able to do that virtually as well. So we're looking at these skills and seeing how we can adapt them for at-home athletes to train as well as compete. We will probably, when it comes to fall sectionals and fall fest, have 2 separate divisions. A division for the at-home athletes as well as the in-person athletes, and division them separately. Because we've realized you're going to have different equipment at home than you're going to have in-person at home and in person. So things will be a little bit different at home. But we want to make sure that we do provide those sports-specific trainings for athletes that are at home as well. The other thing that Jen's actually working on, she's part of the national committee to roll out a virtual fitness offerings at home. She's putting up a high 5 or high 10. So they're looking at 2 different options. One is, well, actually 3 different options, right? One is a virtual fitness competition, and one is the National Distance Challenge. I guess if some of you were around here for a while, we did have, for a long time, we did do the National Distance Challenge a couple years ago. Jen, I don't want to ruin this for you, so if I'm incorrect, please feel free to chime in. But with the National Distance Challenge, it could essentially be like an app on your phone where you'll be doing what, 100, was it 50 log 50 miles, 100 miles, 150 miles, and the app will keep track of all your miles.
And there are paper versions that will be available.
Cool, thank you. So that would be the virtual challenge, and then they're working on a virtual fitness challenges, which would be either like a heptathlon with a menu of like 20 some events, and the athletes can select 7 of those events, do pre-testing, do midway through testing, and then do, you know, end of season testing, and the athletes would be awarded on their, essentially on their improvement. So how much improvement have they made from session 1 until session 12 or whatever it is at the end of this. Second option within there that we're looking at is kind of like the powerlifting options, where there'll be a menu of events of like 20 different activities that encompass different parts of the body, whether it's upper arms, you know, your arms, your legs, whether it's endurance or strength.
And that you'll only choose 3 because it's the triple component.
And within that, you would select 3 out of those competitions, and you would be awarded based off of those 3. But again, it's all kind of new. We're all going through the process right now. Jen's been working, like I said, on the national level with the committee, people from across, colleagues from across the country, athletes across the country, to get their feedback and get this ready to roll out very shortly. So there will be meaningful opportunities for athletes to not only train virtually, but also compete virtually. So that's what we are working on right now. Real quick, before we get to questions, I just want to show this again. This is the website that I brought up for coaches, the COVID-19 protocol updates, return to activities. So everything that we just talked about is in here, but more importantly, you can see this volleyball individual skills guide. That is the guide that I just brought up, and it has all the training in there. It has all the diagrams in there. It has the competition information in there.
Bruce, could you go to that guide and go to page 29 for me, please?
This one?
No, there was a
conduct?
page there was a page that was referenced in a question.
Oh, okay. Jen, do you know what the question was? And actually, we're going to do questions right now. So
No, we're not. We have a poll first.
Well, I was going to do the poll, but yeah. Do we have that question?
They are saying that this on page 29 in the volleyball printout, they thought the skills were different than were just discussed. Some were on a wall, but they may be incorrect. The only sport that we did anything with a wall was flag football.
Flag football.
And believe me, because I know these skills inside and out.
I think, Jen, what they're referring to were the ones that you renamed, if you remember when I submitted them to you.
Oh, those would, did you have one with a wall? That was in the training section.
Yes.
Training for skills that you can do at practice.
They were trainings, yes.
Okay, Jen, you want to pull up that poll? We have about 6 minutes, and I want to get to these questions.
Okay.
Hopefully answer some questions.
All right, here's poll number 2. Would you be interested, there we go. Would you be interested in leading at-home virtual trainings and competitions with your team? Yes, no, or I would prefer to be in person. Then the second question, would you prefer the virtual at-home training options to be specific to your sport or fitness focused? You have 4 choices, sport specific, fitness focused. You'd be glad to do both or neither of them. I'm not interested in training virtually. Okay, let's see. All right, the poll's moving pretty quick. We have a couple people yet to respond. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll now. You'll see that for the, I'm gonna share the results with you. So you can see that in question number 1, 44% of the people said no, they would not be interested in leading at-home virtual training. It was very close with the 39%. And then it looks like sports specific and fitness focus were tied. And so was people would do both of them, or the response was, I'm not interested in training virtually. So it looks like we have some ties going on there. All right. Thanks everyone for participating in the polls. We're just looking to get a better idea of what will be happening this fall. And Bruce, you want to take it for some questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, is there any questions in the chat that we need to talk out loud or talk through? Or does anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourselves.
Bruce, just that one question with regard to the training portion, just so that they're clear, they're not submitting scores for training. They're submitting scores based on the skills that are listed and that we looked at today.
Yeah, that's correct.
So there's a level 1 and there's a level 2. The athlete has to choose either level 1 or level 2, and those are the 3 skills they'll be competing in.
So the preliminary scores will be due 3 weeks prior to the event. So 3 weeks prior to fall sectionals, that October 3rd date. So you'll test the athletes on their overhead passing. If they're doing level 1 skills, you'll test them on overhead passing, underhand serve, and forearm pass at practice. You'll collect those scores, and depending on how your program does it, most likely you would turn those score sheets into your sport and competition coordinator, and they would submit those scores to SOPA, and we would enter those scores into GMS. Same thing if your athlete is participating in level 2 skills, you would test them on the bump set, overhead serving, and the over the net set, collect their scores, again, fill out that sheet, turn it into your sport and comp person, and they will submit the scores to us.
Bruce, here are some questions coming in.
Okay.
Just
And then
then we'll hit Les's question.
all right, one last thing. And then once you do the preliminary scores 3 weeks prior, the Monday before the event, before fall sectionals, you'll retest them again and resubmit these scores for their final scores, and we'll use them for the awards. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, Les Lohner, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I've been on a couple of the COVID training, and there's been a lot of discussion on the BMI.
Yep.
And it seems to be like a lot of confusion. Some people are saying that we can mention it to them if we think they're over the 30%, but it's up to them to decide if they want to keep training if you go live on person. And some people are saying no, if they're above 30%, they're automatically not allowed to participate. So just trying to get a true confirmation on that as to how strict are we supposed to be with that, and how do we present that to the coaches and volunteers, since they're considered participants, they would fall into the same category.
Yeah, so right now we're asking everyone to self-identify. So we're not going to be saying, hey, Lester, you need to fill this out. But you self-identify yourself, and if you fall into that range, it would be hopefully expected that you would not participate. For athletes, it's going to be a little bit more tricky, where they have to self-identify as well. But I know that Chelsea went back to the SOI to get further confirmation on that. And that's something that will be updated on our FAQs. Lester, you're not the only one with that question. It's been asked. It was asked last night, again tonight. So once we get further clarification on that, but we're not going to be the BMI police where you're standing there, what's your height, what's your weight. It's kind of expected that the athletes and the coaches and volunteers would do it as part of their pre-screening, and the code of conduct, participation form, and self-identify themselves if they were high risk. So that
Once we have more information, Les, we'll make sure it gets out to everyone. Bruce, does someone at home have to have a coach train them to participate, or if a parent can train them, is that okay?
I guess it's really something we'll have to look into, but really the coach should kind of be overseeing that and touching base with the athletes. A, to make sure that they're doing it properly. B, that they're getting proper instructions. And C, the coaches will be the ones collecting that information. So if you're a volleyball coach and you have 4 athletes that are coming to in-person training, but you have 6 that are staying home, you just want to make sure that you're coaching them and giving them the same guidance that you're giving the in-person athletes as well. But certainly their parents going to be there probably to support them, help them do some of the drills, help them set up the drills in their backyard. Like if they're doing the bump set, they can help them with the scoring, report the scores back to the coach, and then the coach could submit their scores. Again, we're going to have to get creative with some of these. I'm not sure how we would do overhead serving at home, but maybe we adapt some type of, the parent takes them to a park and does it on a volleyball net, or can they set up a clothesline in their backyard and they just hit a volleyball towards some water bottles or whatever that may be. So we're going through that for at home too, for virtual.
Okay. Our last question in the box is from Samantha. She's asking if athletes are participating in a tournament, not sectionals, from home and not from a practice site, do the families register them?
I'm not sure what's that related to. What kind of tournament? Because we won't be having in-person activities this fall.
I believe that she's saying that just the family, and the answer to this is yes. I believe what she is asking is if the athlete is participating, does the family have to register them with the local program so they know that they're training?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you have to be a registered athlete in order to participate.
So my question, this is Samantha. My question
sure.
was, you had mentioned that for them to attend like the sectionals in Villanova, you need to be having a practice site practice. So my group has chosen not to have in-person practices. You had mentioned that there are other tournaments that they can participate in.
No,
right?
they
Or other events that they can participate in.
No, they would just be doing it virtual at home. So you'd be able to train them virtually at home. And then we're going to work on the in-home, the virtual phases, the virtual competitions, so you can train them at home. So these are the virtual trainings. This is what the skills look like. This is what you're going to have to do at home. And then you would collect those scores from your athletes, and then we would division them separately. So we would have, like for fall sectionals, we would have an at-home division and an in-person virtual division.
Okay. So,
That makes sense?
yeah, so if we are not having practice in person and we're not coaching virtually, is there no opportunity for them to participate at home, like with a parent guiding them without a coach's interaction?
No, they would have to be with the coach's interaction. However, we are rolling out some fitness activities and virtual fitness that they can do at home virtually without a coach.
Right. The national distance challenge can be done without a coach.
Thank you.
Does that help clear that up a little bit? So what we're talking about right here is what I'm referring to as the sport-specific trainings and competitions, where we want the coaches to get involved with, leading and working with your athletes either in person or virtually. Right now it's about 8:04. So if no one else has any questions, I'm not going to hang up. I'm going to stay on, but if you want to drop, you can drop. But Jen and I and Marianne will stay on for a couple more minutes to keep answering your questions. Again, this webinar will be put on our website under the sports offered section, so you can go back and listen to it that way. The PowerPoint will also be listed there as well. And make sure you go to our website and download the volleyball packet that we put together. So I just want to say thanks for everyone that joined us. And if you want to drop, you can drop. And if not, hang on.
We have 2 more questions to go so far at this time.
Sure.
And Anne, I'll answer this one for you. Anne is asking, why is volleyball different than how basketball was done? I thought basketball skills were submitted by athletes. The difference here is that we are doing an 8 to 10 week training program with our athletes, and then the coaches submitting the scores, so they are all done the same because they will be divisioned and awarded. When we did the basketball skills at summer games, the athletes were so responsible to submit their scores, and they were not divisioned and awarded by their placement.
Right. So some summer games, there was no division,
And there was no
awards,
training.
and the athletes were not training at the time. Where this will be coach focused, coach driven, and athletes, return into practice, return into training, and we'll actually be using the skills that are associated with each sport, as opposed to just making up some activities that they can do.
And Alice says, wouldn't virtual fitness be okay without a coach? And the answer is no, it will not be okay without a coach. We will actually have coaches trainings for those coaches who are doing the virtual fitness, so that our athletes are doing the components appropriately and safely.
But the distance one, right? The virtual distance they can do on their own.
Right, that's the national challenge. The challenge can be done without a coach. Fitness as a sport cannot be done without a coach. And we are working, we are hoping that the fitness training is ready and will be able to be done at Fall Festival. So the answer is, fingers are crossed that we are going to be able to have the fitness competition along with Fall Festival. Okay, and those are the questions there. Anyone else have a question?
Do you want?
All
You
right.
can unmute. I was going to say they can unmute themselves and just ask the
Sure
question.
can.
Hey, Jen, this is Ann.
Yes.
So we are possibly going to have Fall Festival, or is that going to be virtual?
That's virtual. The sectionals and the state game are all definitely virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no in-person activities this fall.
Is Villanova participating at all?
The student committee is.
Yep, 100%.
They are all three of the sectional committees, as well as Fall Festivals committee, are participating in setting up the virtual activities, the virtual games, awards, opening, closing, all that good stuff. So the students are still involved, but unfortunately we can't be together on campus.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
All right. So if there's no more questions, I just want to thank everyone again. And thanks, Jen and Mary Ellen, for joining us.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Mary Ellen.
We will, I'll stay on for another 5 minutes if anyone else has any questions. But if not, everyone have a great night and good luck this fall.